Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Caregivers. I'm Caroline, the Executive Director with Solva Senior Living.
Hi, and I'm Rachel, the Program and Partnership Director here at Solva.
Welcome to our podcast series where we sit down with caregivers in the community and discuss their journey, their bumps along the way, lessons learned, and share advice to those who might be going through something similar. Each episode, we invite a local caregiver on to share their experiences and to chat about what they went through.
As always, I'm Rachel from Solva Senior Living, and with me today I have my colleague Caroline and our special guest, Wendy Burrow. And I'll pass it over to you now, Caroline.
Thank you, Rachel. I want to thank today's guest, Wendy, for being with us. Your time really is appreciated. And you and I were first in contact at the end of last year, I believe, when you reached out regarding your dad. Now, he was already in a retirement home, but his situation, his health had changed quickly, and you ultimately didn't know what to do. Is that fair? Can you take us back to last fall and give us some background?
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm so thrilled to be part of this and to be able to share. So you're absolutely right. Late last year, my father unfortunately had a stroke, and that sort of set a whole bunch of things in motion. And I must say, I was basically in shock, at a loss. And he was at a senior's residence in independent care. However, after the stroke, my dad needed a lot of support, and I was really at a loss as to what to do, what services were available, what were the costs, what support I could access on his behalf. And so I must say that coming across you, Carolyn, was it was very gratifying, because you really supported my journey and my dad's journey and really pointed me in the right direction. So my dad went from being very independent to then needing a whole bunch of support. And so I think I'll just stop there, because you may have other questions, but I was at a loss as to what in the community exists, where could he go, what could the costs be, and what was available to him.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I mean, I know we did have a lot of discussion, sort of literally about that. You know, he was sort of on one plan. You know, he was healthy, he was safe, he was living in a retirement home, and then literally on a dime, his health changed, and there was no sort of there was nothing that we knew what to do. So you and I did spend a lot of time sort of looking at that. What are the challenges here? What do we need to start looking at? What can we go down this avenue? Can we go down that avenue? What do you think was the sort of the biggest challenge of that, other than, you know, you also putting one half of yourself trying to understand your dad's new medical needs, whilst at the same time working through a pandemic and having to do all of this on the side? Was there any one specific thing that was more challenging than the next?
Well, I had thought that you would ask me what was the one thing that really made a difference, because I was going to say you, and your guidance and your support. So there were many factors. First of all, I had to support my dad from an emotional perspective as well, because he went from someone who was, you know, somewhat healthy, very independent, resilient, to someone who needed care. And so supporting him through that emotional journey was quite something. Two, access to resources, access to service, knowing, the difference between independent living and assisted living and long-term care, and what do the three have in common, and how do the three differ? And so cost was also very prevalent. Like, you know, my dad certainly had a limited budget. So what was affordable? And also, much more importantly, what where could he go that I could be assured of proper care, compassionate care, efficient staff. And then in the midst of the pandemic, as you mentioned, that threw a whole other layer of considerations for me. So, and then knowing, like, there's a list. I was given a list of various long-term care facilities, but I had no idea what the differences were between them. I'm sure that they're all great, but there are different layers of greatness and different layers of safety and health care. And so I had no idea. And thanks to you, you helped guide me. You never forced me in one particular direction, but at least having your insight and your guidance and having your knowledge about various facilities really helped me navigate the system, because there's no one person there, or I didn't find that there was a number to call where I could get access to information about the various facilities. And so, as I said, your guidance and your insight into this information and other services was also helpful.
Well, you can't see me, but I am blushing. I mean, I genuinely thank you for that. I mean, it's one thing to know that you are trying to make a difference and that you are trying to help people genuinely understand things and get the best for themselves or their families. But it's another thing to be told. So I do appreciate that. Thank you. What happened with your dad? Because we weren't, unfortunately, able to get him into a new retirement home that could meet his care support needs, but also, as you've mentioned, meet his budget. And that's something we can sidebar and talk about in another episode, about how costs unfortunately affect all of this. But what was his process then after this? What happened?
So after going from one hospital to another, and waiting for a long-term care facility to have an available place for him, he did end up in a very great facility with great staff. And so it ended well. But I must say, it might not have, like, in terms of decisions, like having that the label or the title of power of attorney, knowing that you're a caregiver and someone's livelihood, well-being is in your hands, and that you're managing their affairs and that you're making decisions on their behalf, that's a pretty hefty weight. And so I must say that he did end up, as I said, in a great facility, but it took some time. And I had to make sure I got informed of, the different types of facilities. I had to make sure that I spoke to the staff at the facility to ask about the type of support that was available and could be available to him, especially at this time of COVID, where I can't go and see my father each and every day. Thank God this particular facility had Zoom services, so that 3 times a week I'm able to visit with him virtually. But that was a factor. Like, there were certain things that I needed to, it was a bit of a checklist. Like, I had to make a checklist to say, okay, which facility has Zoom services? Which one can ensure proper care for him, because he does need support following the stroke? Which one has so basically for me, I needed to have a checklist. I needed to have someone like you that I could sort of have as a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. What you did was, as well, you provided me additional thinking and additional options that I hadn't thought of. And I must say, my besides the care and well-being of my father, so making sure that I found a facility that was close to where I live and had the type of care that I myself would want, those were really key factors for me. And having someone like you that I could share and go, okay, what do you think? That was so useful. I must say that my heart goes out to all of the staff at the long-term care facilities and seniors' homes and residences, because particularly now, it is so challenging for them. But from what I've seen of this particular facility that my dad is at, they certainly are supporting him. They are observing him. When I see that my dad needs something or seems to be sluggish or what have you, I do have access to talk to the doctor and provide feedback. And that's something I wanted. I wanted to build a relationship with the staff at the facility, and be able to access them pretty quickly if there was an issue with my dad. So for me, observing and being very present in his care has really been helpful. I'm being proactive as much as I can be. I am observing his moods and his physical composition, and I'm responding as quickly as I can. You really need to be able to manage the process and not have the process manage you. We've got to be alert when we're taking care of our loved ones.
I was just about to say, before you added all of that, I was about to say, what's your advice? And I mean, that's amazing advice to be exactly that. You know, try and be as proactive as you can, because you're advocates. You are the advocate for your dad. And being able to be involved as you are with this is huge. Is there any other advice you would give to others who are in a similar situation?
I guess don't feel that you're alone. It's really important to get plugged in, get informed. What's really worked for me is that, and I'm just repeating myself a bit, but now that my dad is in a facility that's very reputable and credible, I need to make sure that I'm constantly on top of things. I cannot just rely on the staff and the medical care. I need to ask questions. I need to just make sure that it's kind of like a journey. My dad and I are on the journey with the staff of this facility. And so I've built rapport with them. I try not to be a nuisance and bug them. But when, my dad is the type of person who doesn't want to interfere or bother people. And so I've learned that. And so I'm the one who's got to step in and be proactive. And so, as I said, you really have to manage the process, and also know that, especially now, I'm being very careful about how I allow or not allow certain circumstances to unravel. Like, for example, just recently, my dad seemed really tired, which was so unusual. So I picked up the phone and left a message for the doctor, and then had a conversation with the doctor about, could it be the medication or what's happening? And so had I left it for longer, it had to do with the medication he was on. And so they basically adjusted it. But that's why I'm saying we've got to be very proactive and manage the situation, and not rely just on our loved ones, because they are sometimes feeling very vulnerable and not necessarily wanting to interrupt the staff. So that's one of the things that I've learned. I also think that, I'm really thankful that unfortunately COVID has really brought to the forefront the need for the spotlight to be on seniors, to be on people in long-term care. And I think that funding, attention to this issue, because our seniors are valuable members of the community and they cannot be forgotten. And Solva and other organizations such as yours are critical to the livelihood of seniors. And funding and support, I think, is so vital, because as life events continue, we too will be seniors. And so we want the best for ourselves, and we want the best for our loved ones. And so support, funding, attention to these critical issues is so, so key for us as a community, as a society, and as a country.
Here. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Just before we go, I think a last point for me, or I'd be interested in hearing. We turn back the clock, of course not. But what would you have liked to have known this time last year before you hit this with your dad having the stroke towards the end of the year? Is there something that others can ultimately take away from this, other than maybe having a plan? Understand what happens or what your options are when things change.
Well, I think that when we are in the workforce and we're thinking about retirement, some people take retirement courses. And when we're traveling, we sometimes will do research on, where are the best places to travel. And so as we plan for such things, I think we need to just pay attention. And so I'm speaking to myself as well, with our parents. We should be thinking, I think, long term we all want our parents, we want the best for them. But I think just being very present and conscious of the fact that at some point our parents may need to go into long-term care, may need assisted care services, or sometimes they are at home, but they need certain services like the LIN or other services. And so I think you've hit it on the head in terms of we do need to be thinking long-term and planning and just informing ourselves, even if it's, even if we're being proactive. It's better to have information ahead of time than happens to be scrambling. And so I think that's really important to be informed of what is available. And there are a lot of services that are available in the community. I wish there was a number, and maybe there is. I wish there was an information line that you could contact and to be told, okay, if you're looking for this, go online or call this other number. I think we need some kind of hub, if it doesn't exist, that we can contact. And everybody can't access services online. And so it's a matter of having multiple channels that people can use to inform themselves about services for seniors, community services, in case they're needed. And I think that would be so helpful. And planning ahead, as I said. So those are just sort of off the top of my head, some of the thoughts that I have. But we can't, I think we have to be so conscious. I think COVID has brought to the forefront the fact that the unexpected happens. And how do you prepare for that? And especially if we have parents who are still alive, and for those who are powers of attorney for those individuals, we need to make sure that we have information in the event, sadly, that something happens and their situation changes. So, the other short example I'll give is that we are in neighborhoods where there may be also people who may be in need of services who are asking us. I've got a situation where I do know of people who've asked, do you know, how to find this, or do you know where this is available? So it's all, to me, it's all a bank of knowledge that we need to know and have tools to access them. But I think that it would be great if there could be some forum, some organization, something that brings this information all together so that it's not scattered. Because as I said, without you, I would not have known what to do when to do it and how to do it.
Thank you. Well, we do try to be somewhat of that kind of an organization, but again, you're right, not everybody knows that we exist or what we are able to do, or the services or referrals that we can give to community subsidized programs or private pay, as you say, what is available to you and what you actually need. But thank you so much. I mean, your contributions here have been incredibly insightful and sincerely appreciated. So thank you so much for your time today. And we wish you and your dad all the absolute very best going forward. So thanks so much, Wendy.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Conversations with Caregivers. If you want to hear more, check us out online at www.solverseniorliving.ca. And don't forget to subscribe to receive notifications about new episodes. Bye for now.